Now, with this vaccine, some people are saying it'll make you infertile. And it's like, no, once again, it doesn't work that way. And the people who actually give out misinformation there and are bad actors, they all have the same thing in common. They have some credentials that may or may not be legit. They use medical terminology and some buzzwords of biochemistry and talk about DNA and a synctin-1 protein that's come with your placenta and the spike protein. And they use all these things, and then they say they made a study. And when you really investigate it, it's like totally false. It's nonsense. And for people who understand that, it's like really laughable to us. So let me tell you about the pregnancy thing. There's a little protein called synctin-1 that is in your placenta, and it's also in the coronavirus spike protein. And remember how I said earlier that the amino acids and the mRNA, they're like the building blocks of life. Think of them like little Legos. And when you make an amino acid, it's a couple of little acids that you put together. Then you make bigger amino acids, makes a protein. You make a bigger protein, it can make a spike protein. Then you add all those proteins together and things like that, and then you make cells. And so those are building blocks of life, like little Legos. Now just think about the spike protein, like what we said about how that little mutation won't change really significantly how the vaccine works, because it's just a little piece of that spike protein. Just like a fender is a little piece of a car, that doesn't change the whole car. That little mutation in the spike protein doesn't change the way the vaccine is going to work right now. And that little synctin-1 protein that is in your placenta, that is also in the spike protein, they're just little building blocks of life. They're little Legos. And so the thing is, that's also shared. That synctin-1 protein is also in E. coli, which causes UTIs. It's also in the flu, and it's also in other viruses. So you've been exposed to it already. So if you've been exposed to that and you really had like an autoimmune reaction to this little protein, everyone would have had that autoimmune reaction. Everyone would have autoimmune disease if what these people are saying is true. It's simply not true. Just because they share one little protein, it doesn't really matter. So I hope that helps explain to you why this whole thing about being infertile after getting antibodies from the vaccine is completely false. Here's what a bad actor will say. After getting the Pfizer vaccine, 23 people got pregnant. So a bad actor will say, oh, wait, you better not get that vaccine because you're going to get pregnant. And you know what? That's totally false. Because we all know how pregnancy works, right? It's so like universally known that you can't get pregnant that way. But if you tell someone who doesn't understand that, say a child or something like that, they might believe you because they don't know how pregnancy works. So this misinformation that we're getting, the scientists and the people who understand the mechanism of biology and biochemistry and how these things work, it's kind of laughable to us too, because when you laugh at like me telling you a vaccine will make you pregnant, because that's so obvious that doesn't work that way. For us, saying like, hey, the vaccine will change your DNA, it's like, that's so obvious to us that won't happen. To say that it'll make you infertile, no, that's not going to happen. I mean, that's not the way it works. So I hope that reassures you about this. And there's also much more information about the safety of these vaccines that I want you to know about. Each company made an FDA executive summary, Pfizer and Moderna. If you Google FDA executive summary for these vaccines, it'll come right up, and I'll make these links in the descriptions. But it goes through all the vaccine protocols, the results, and the demographics, meaning, and this is important for you out there, that they tested a wide range of age groups They tested a wide range of ethnicities, and they tested people with multiple risk factors and comorbid conditions, including some of the things that I mentioned earlier: cancers, diabetes, hypertension, HIV, etc., different ethnicities, different ages. So I'm going to go through some of these numbers with you that are right from the FDA executive summaries. So listen carefully. It's going to be a lot of numbers, but I think it will help you and people that you want to talk to about this vaccine to be reassured that it's been tested in your group. So let's look at the ethnicities. I want to pull this up right here. And so Caucasians, 82%, Black or African American, 9.2% of the participants, and this was in the Pfizer vaccine. That's 1,729 Black or African Americans. For American Indians and Alaskan Natives, there are 102 participants, 0.5% for Asian Americans, 801, that's 4.2%. For Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islanders, 50 people given the vaccine. Multiracial, 449 people given the vaccine. In the age groups of greater than 55 years old, 42% of the people in this trial who got vaccines were greater than 55 years old. That's 7,971 participants. The median age was 52 years old, and then they also looked at their weight. So for people who are overweight, that made up 34.9% of the people who got vaccines. That's 6,578 people. And for people who are obese, it made up 34.8%. That's 6,556 people who got the vaccine. And now let's go through some of the comorbid conditions. From the Moderna vaccine, people with chronic lung disease, 4%, 4.7, 707 people. Significant cardiac disease, 742 people, 4.9%. Severe obesity, 64.5%, that was 986. For diabetes, 9.4%, that's 1,427 people. For liver disease, it's 100 people. People with HIV were 90 people. So this is really important because all these people got the vaccine, and you know what? There's zero significant adverse side effects in all these people. So I want to reassure you that all these different types of people got the vaccine and zero significant side effects. In the last week, 600,000 people have gotten the vaccines, and there's only been one hospitalization for an allergic reaction, and that patient did fine, released after 1 day. Compare that with the last week, 120,000 people have gotten infected with COVID-19 and 20,000 have died. That's dead. So the vaccine's a lot safer than COVID is. Don't worry about if the vaccine will give you COVID or chip you or change your DNA or make you infertile. I mean, that stuff is laughable. Having said that, the numbers don't lie. 20,000 dead in the last week from COVID-19. The vaccine, 600,000 people vaccinated, zero deaths, zero serious adverse side effects. The vaccine is overwhelmingly safe. And please don't listen to all the people who say it isn't. Thank you. Stay safe.